We are convening the open session for the City Council meeting. We're going to have the invocation led by Rabbi David Lisbon of the Jewish Community Center, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Baldino. If you could all please rise.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the Council, City Council, town officials, and good evening to all. I'm honored and humbled to stand in the presence of such distinguished individuals who devote their lives to better the lives of others. We thank God today that our beloved country, the United States of America, our beloved state, the state of California, and our beloved city, the city of El Segundo, is blessed with such legislators, beacons of unwavering strength, belief, and leadership. We know that the strength to do what you do is born out of profound faith, hope, prayer, and trust in God Almighty. And I thank you for continuing to inspire the city of El Segundo. The entire world looks up to the United States of America, a country founded upon the principles of morality, decency, and trust in God. A country where all people, all races, and all cultures can live side by side with mutual tolerance and respect. A country where each and every one of us can lift our heads high and be proud of our roots and our identity. A country where we can all work together to permeate goodness, decency, and morality in our society. These are the ideals that make us the role model of the world. We are approaching the holiday of Passover. I'd like to share a few words from a letter my teacher sent my grandfather back in 1983. The festival of Passover, also known as the season of our liberation, comes around every year, not merely to remind us of the liberation of our ancestors from Egyptian bondage, but also to inspire us to strive for a greater measure of self-liberation from all limitations and distractions which impede one from one's free exercise of good choices in the everyday life. This is the meaning of what it says in the Haggadah. In every generation, one should see himself as though he personally has been liberated from Egypt, Mitzrayim in Hebrew. It is in this blessed country of freedom and opportunity, such total identification with the spirit of the season of liberation pertains more to the inner self than the outer factors which are often beyond one's control. Here, thank God, there are no external constraints or limitations to getting involved with charitable causes. It is only a matter of setting one's goals high enough to meet the challenges and opportunities of these times. Given the will and determination, the opportunities are limitless. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, v'yakol Yisrael, v'yimru amen. May he who makes peace on high, may he bring peace to all of us, all around the world today as well. Thank you.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Councilmember Baldino. We've got a special presentation this evening related to... Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk.
I'm so sorry.
It's only highlighted in yellow. Madam Clerk, would you please take roll call?
Councilmember Baldino.
Here.
Councilmember Giroux.
Here.
Councilmember Perstuck.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Here.
And Mayor Boyle.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. George, I know we have a special presentation this evening. If you'd like to address.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Our fire chief will initiate this item.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Tony Del Castillo. I'm a fire captain with the City of El Segundo. I also serve as a paramedic coordinator for our organization. I'm currently in my 24th year of service here with the city, with the fire department. And it's been my privilege to oversee our EMS program. We have one of the most remarkable, top-notch EMS programs, and it truly is an honor for me to be able to oversee that. And I've been overseeing that program for the last 7 years. With the help from the city, fire chief, and our administrative staff, and our medical equipment vendor, Zoll Corporation, we've been able to outfit our organization with some of the newest and most advanced medical equipment to date. Tonight, I'd like to highlight one piece, a part of that equipment, and this is called the AutoPulse. It's a mechanical CPR device. The AutoPulse provides consistent, continuous compressions at a proper depth and rate It basically assists mechanical CPR and it increases the circulation in a patient suffering in a cardiac arrest. This device statistically has shown and proven to provide better outcomes in patients. And I'd like to share a couple of scenarios with you this evening in where this has come to fruition. On January 8, 2023, Engine 31 and Rescue 31 responded to a 70-year-old male found down in cardiac arrest. There was bystander CPR in progress. Your El Segundo firefighters deployed the AutoPulse, and I'd like to highlight, we have a software mechanism that we can actually go back and look at the data. They deployed this AutoPulse within 6 seconds of arrival at the patient. Then they focused on early defibrillation and other ALS interventions. The crew achieved a return of spontaneous circulation. We call it ROSC, basically, where the individual begins breathing and has a heartbeat again, approximately 18 minutes after the interventions began. The patient was then transported to the hospital, and upon arrival, he was breathing, he had a pulse, he was responsive to verbal commands, and he was moving his extremities. This patient was discharged later from the ICU, neurologically intact and without any deficits. This is the story of Jeff Norris, and Jeff and his wife, Ema, are with us tonight, and I'd like to acknowledge them if they can. Just grab their hands up. Well, I'm glad that you're here. We'd also like to recognize at this time Richard Stump and Jim Helvey, if they're here. These individuals performed bystander CPR on Jeff Norris. This is a selfless act that helped save his life. Richard and Jim, if you guys are here, you guys mind? So on February 7, 2023, approximately like 2 weeks later, Truck 32 and Rescue 31 responded to a 26-year-old male found down in cardiac arrest. Again, your El Segundo firefighters immediately began manual CPR and soon after deployed the AutoPulse. In this case, however, the AutoPulse had a mechanical issue and it failed. However, the crew adapted and they overcame to the situation and continued with manual CPR. They then focused on early defibrillation and other ALS interventions. The crew achieved return of spontaneous circulation, is what we call ROSC again, in the patient approximately 22 minutes after interventions began. This patient was then transported to the hospital with a pulse and breathing. He was discharged from the ICU at a later time, neurologically intact and without any deficits. So due to the quick and efficient response by your El Segundo firefighters, along with bystander CPR, the use of this new equipment and the AutoPulse, and other advanced life support interventions, both of these individuals are alive today. The city of El Segundo has always made a commitment of providing its public safety with the resources and the most state-of-the-art equipment, and for that I thank you. This enables us to deliver the most progressive, efficient, and effective emergency services, which in turn results in saving lives like this. So we're here tonight to recognize the following El Segundo firefighters who provided these life-saving interventions. In collaboration with Zolar Corporation, we'd like to present each firefighter. We have a certificate from Zolar Corporation, Clinical Save Award certificate, and a special EMS coin. So I'd like to call them up now and then provide them with their certs, and then if we can get a picture with everybody, that'd be fantastic. Captain Kurt Croson. Captain Croson led his crew on both of those incidents on the Jeff and the 26-year-old, so he gets 2 certificates. Paramedic Jeff McPrang. Paramedic McPrang was one of the primary medics. He also was on both of those cardiac arrests, so he gets 2 certificates, and he was on Rescue 31. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Paramedic Kevin Carpenter. Again, Paramedic Carpenter was Jeff's partner on Rescue 31, and he was on both incidents with Jeff and the 26-year-old. Firefighter Dylan Lowell. Oh, sorry. They're actually on a call right now, so they should be coming back here shortly. Firefighter Ray Lopez. Engineer Evan West. I'd also like to acknowledge a couple individuals that aren't on duty tonight, but were part of that. Firefighter Nicholas Howe. Captain Nathan McElroy. Engineer Edon Dueck. And Engineer Brian Partlow. He's on the call right now also. So we also received 2 awards for the actual El Segundo Fire Department, and I'd like Fire Chief Lee to come up and to accept these for the department. And I will pass out the coins. Company, and they have a special ECG rhythm on one side, and it says Zolger on the other side. So pretty cute there. That's all I have. I'm sorry. Yeah, Chief Sifke. I'm sorry. Chief Sifke was actually responded to the full arrest just because of the circumstances. He stated. Where the call came in, he thought it was a unique call, and if he thought he could provide some assistance, so he was there to help out on Mr. Jeff Norris's incident. If the family, if Jeff and Ema, if you guys would mind coming up and we can all get a picture together, that'd be great. And then Chief, you can come up too, get a picture. Jim and yeah, Richard.
I do. Everybody looks fantastic. Okay, here we go. A couple of photos, please. Back up just a wee bit more. Yeah, a couple more. And that'll do it. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Anybody else want to?
Oh, hey, Captain. My wife just reminded me, the CPR compression to breath rule changed not too long ago, right? Is it 30 to 2 now since we got the public here? Could you just kind of give us a quick overview of that? So
the American Heart constantly changes the CPR ratios. 30 to 2, absolutely. We actually, the AutoPulse, it has preset features where obviously continuous CPR would be the best because the idea is to increase that thoracic pressure. And when you increase the thoracic pressure, it basically increases the circulation and provides that oxygen to the brain. So, I mean, whether it's 30 to 2, to be honest, 15 to 2, or continuous, we just need bystander CPR to get involved and help out. But 30 to 2 is the new American Heart Association CPR ratio. But we, like I said, we try to continue CPR. And that's one thing with these devices is that we can set the monitor, it relieves us, and then that thing never stops unless we need to do like a check or a pulse or we get ROSC back. So it's a very unique and a really neat piece of equipment. And again, I'd like to thank you for your continued support and providing the Measure B funds for and allowing us to purchase those, because they are pretty incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated.
And we also offer CPR classes, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We have obviously the big event, which is Super CPR Saturday, where we train multiple individuals and usually tie it to Fire Safety Day also. And we have instructors here at the fire department that can provide CPR. And we also do, hopefully, since COVID, we haven't been able to do it, but sidewalk CPR is a big one. So we'll actually, in June, we do, in collaboration with DHS, Department of Health Services, we actually do sidewalk CPR. And the point's been our go-to spot where we'll just grab people that are walking through, patrons, kids, and we teach them just hands-on CPR there too. So that's another really neat community event that we do.
Thanks
you.
again, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Congrats. Okay, next up is public communications. Now is the time and place for public comments. 5-minute limit per person. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that would like to address the council?
We do. First up, Natalie Carey.
All right, hello. I'm here tonight to bring something to the attention of both City Council and whomever else is listening that this may concern. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm quite angry about what I'm about to share with you all, but I know that words spoken in anger are oftentimes not heard. So I'm doing my best to approach you with patience and respect. What you have before you are photocopies. Did you guys get them? Okay, cool. What you have before you are photocopies of pages from 2 different books I recently found in the children's section of the El Segundo Public Library. There are more like this, but for the sake of brevity, I only brought in 2 examples. No doubt you all know that the housing market in El Segundo is competitive, and judging by the campaigns you all lead with during election season, you know that it is because El Segundo has a certain small-town charm, a family-friendly focus that you don't get in the rest of LA, which is why people are willing to pay the exorbitant prices that they do in order to live here. El Segundo is special because it's centered around community and family. It's a refuge from the progressive policies that have wrought havoc on the rest of Los Angeles, with the homeless crisis, the drug crisis, the poor public schools, and the general chaotic nature of a place that loses sight of the values that once made it great, like family, God, and duty to one's community. So when I was at the library recently with an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I saw these books, frankly, I was shocked. I have heard of books like these weaseling their way into libraries across the country, but I never thought that I would see it in El Segundo. I naively believed that because El Segundo is different, or seemed different, that it would actually be different. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw these pages, and sorry guys, this is a little graphic. Images of people having sex with word bubbles of moaning sounds, images of a penis going into a vagina, and texts teaching kids that sex can be between 2 men or 2 women. This is explicit material that would be inappropriate without the references to gay sex, so don't misunderstand me and think that I'm only calling this out because it references that. I'm frankly appalled by the whole entire thing. This is really uncomfortable to quote from this book, but here we go. The last page in your little 3-part series says, quote, "Before he falls asleep at night, Anthony sometimes rubs his penis. He likes the feeling it gives him, a wonderful feeling that is not like any other." It goes on to say, quote, "Some people were told years ago that masturbating is wrong, and they still believe it. If adults tell you it is bad to touch yourself, remember that this may have more to do with their feelings than what is right or wrong for you." So now, the El Segundo Public Library wants to tell all the children in El Segundo that masturbating isn't right or wrong. They are directly undermining the parents' role to teach values and teach right from wrong. And in many instances, they're probably learning what masturbation is for the first time from the El Segundo Public Library, since the average age of the children hanging out in the children's section when I go seems to be about 8 years old. When I asked the librarians at the library about this, their response was, well, all of the library staff helps choose what books we decide to bring in. To which I replied, yeah, isn't that the problem? Who decided this was okay? Then the second time I talked to them, they told me that it was actually the National Congressional Library that recommends which books they fill the library with. And not to bring politics into this, but you would have to have your head completely in the sand not to notice that the federal government has been taken over by woke activists. And we should probably think for ourselves as a community the types of materials we want our kids exposed to. It's basically mainstream news at this point that there are kids attending drag shows, libraries regularly hosting drag queen story hours, the federal government endorsing sex change surgery and hormone blockers for minors under the euphemism of, quote, gender-affirming care, and criminalizing anyone who opposes their agenda. In California, as we speak, there are bills being discussed that would enable the court to take away parental custody of children when the parent does not affirm their child's gender dysphoria. We get labeled bigots and oppressors, and that's fine. If I'm a bigot for not wanting my children exposed to this kind of material, then I'm a bigot proudly. I'll shout it from the rooftops because I'd rather be a bigot than a pervert. Now I'm asking you, which you choose. Would you like to protect the children of El Segundo, or would you like to pervert their innocent little minds? I would like to see all of this material removed from the library, not simply moved to another section of the library. These types of books have no place in our community. I don't want to see books suggesting to young children to masturbate, encouraging them to have sex, and teaching them that sex is between a man and a man or a woman and a woman. This has no place in our library. The appeal of El Segundo is its emphasis on the family, and if you all don't protect that, I imagine El Segundo won't have that same appeal for very much longer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Madam Clerk, any other? Yep.
John Pickhaver.
Good evening, Council. My name is John Pickhaver. I am a resident of El Segundo, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Sweat Equity Alliance to comment on Agenda Item H14, discussion of possibly establishing a public safety task force. I believe this agenda item likely resulted from the discussion brought to the Council by Mayor Boyles at the March 2nd Council meeting. Mayor Boyles, who went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors earlier this year and attended a breakout...
I'm leaving, damn it. But this bullshit going on at the library.
Sir, you're going to have to
is for
excuse
adults,
yourself now.
not for kids.
Inappropriate for this forum. Thank you. We heard the lady's comments.
I will say I did time this to the 5 minutes, so if that could be added back.
John, you get an extra 15, John, you're good.
Yeah. I believe this agenda item likely resulted from the discussion brought to the Council by Mayor Boyles at the March 2nd Council meeting. Mayor Boyles, who went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors earlier this year and attended a breakout session on policing, returned with 3 asks for ESPD. The first dealt with ensuring ESPD is using innovative technologies, which I think we saw from the fire department how important that is. The second with increasing the number of female sworn officers in the department. And the third, which generated the most discussion and why I'm here tonight, was his call for an outside review of ESPD's use of force policy. I want to commend Mayor Boyles for calling on, quote, an outside firm to validate that we're doing everything to make sure our officers are using appropriate use of force and have done so. Now, for almost 3 years, myself and every group I've been a part of has been pushing for exactly this. And let me say this up front. I hope there is no significant or even any inappropriate use of force by ESPD. But I don't know that. And like Mayor Boyles said at the last meeting, he doesn't know for sure either. Chief Bermudez spoke to this concern at the last meeting and spent time outlining the department's internal review procedures regarding incidents of use of force, which I would agree were comprehensive, but still internal. He also presented an interesting stat that I wanted to revisit. He said of the 34,000 incidents that ESPD responded to in 2022, only 23 of those incidents resulted in use of force. In other words, just 0.07% of the time, the chief said. Yet, no one commented on the fact that this includes all incidents. All incidents. So, if there's a parked car outside your house for 3 days and you call us ESPD to chalk the tires, that's an incident. If you call us ESPD to say your bike was stolen and they come take a police report, that's an incident. Cat stuck in a tree, that's an incident. None of these incidents should result in use of force, and I'm pretty sure they don't. That's why incident really isn't the relevant denominator here. I'm not certain what that relevant denominator would be, but I know it's not as broad as all incidents ESPD responds to. What if you were to just look at arrests? According to available data from the city, there were 965 arrests in 2019. 25 of those resulted in use of force, or in other words, 2.4% of all arrests resulted in use of force. Now, for all we know, that still could be a low number comparatively to other cities and in general. But I bring this up to point out that it's over 3,500 times more than the figure that was presented to you at the last meeting. I'm zeroing in on this example to highlight the fact that an outside perspective should and must be a necessity for any public safety task force. That could be members of the community or a police reform expert. Perhaps that's something you've already had in mind, but the potential members mentioned on the agenda only included city staff or council members. So again, just want to express my support for an outside perspective to be included on the task force and also review the use of force policy. I know this council at the last meeting said the DEI committee already reviewed the policy. That's true, they did, but they also recommended further evaluation regarding, quote, concern regarding use of force disproportionately impacting people of color. Another way to look at this is the city obviously wouldn't have the finance team internally audit themselves. There's a third party to give independent oversight and review. The city does this with funds and budgets because they think it's important. But aren't our police officers using force against people just as important? We're talking about employees of the city paid with our tax dollars, and as you are very well aware, the largest line item in our budget annually, using physical force against people. Again, it may be justified in each case, but what about when it's not? Just like allowing only internal review of our financial spending, this creates massive opportunities for lax review and enforcement of policies. Independent review allows for transparency, accountability, and oversight that is needed for such important and literally potentially life or death situations. And finally, to quote Mayor Boyles, we want to say in good faith to constituents that we're doing everything from a policy standpoint to keep the public safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pickaver. Any others? Okay. Mr. George, would you like to address any of the comments were made?
The second speaker, we will discuss that obviously when the item comes up further in the agenda. But regarding the first speaker and the books in the library, I know you've had conversations with our Parks and Rec director, Ally Mancini, so I would like to have Ally come up if she could and just kind of share a little bit of those conversations for the council. Thanks.
Hi, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. I have not directly spoken with the resident. However, staff have spoken with her a few times. We did call again to see if we could set up an in-person meeting. But just to speak a little bit about the issue, the books that are selected for the library cover a wide variety of topics, a lot of those being informational, health-related. The book that I think is being questioned here is a book about anatomy and about puberty. The children's area serves kids from very young up to 8th grade. So some of the material there is geared towards the older children, middle schoolers. And, we really rely on the parents to come with their children into the library and monitor what they feel comfortable with their children reading. It would be very, very difficult for the staff to sort of determine what's offensive and what's not. We try to keep it very informational, and we do only select materials that are either star-reviewed by professional organizations supported by the American Library Association, the Public Library Association, the California Library Association. That's typically how we select our books. But again, we really do rely on parents coming in with their children and helping them make selections that are appropriate for their children and their family.
I remember a book when my kids were young, Where Did I Come From? You know
Yes.
that book?
Yes.
I actually referred to it with some of my 5 kids. Thought it was very informative and a fairly non-intimidating way of explaining things to kids. They were, of course, older than 5 or 8. This particular book, is it in an area where a 5 or 8-year-old would have access to the book if their parent wasn't around?
Well, yes, so if a child is without their parent in the children's area, they'd have access to any of the books in that area. And again, those books go all the way up to like an 8th grade reading level. So they're typically on, just on shelves within the area. But we don't allow children unattended in the library. They have to be with a parent. I understand children can, sneak away, and we understand that. But yes, these books are accessible. And we have parents that come in and request these types of materials because they want to have those conversations with their kids. So we see both sides of it.
I know you say you require the parents there, but I'm pretty positive that a lot of kids right after school at Richmond go straight to the library and wait a couple hours for their parent to appear. There's a lot of unsupervision going on at the public library in the children's area. And I know that because I've seen it for years. So I know that may be a policy, but I don't think that's actually happening. I do believe there's children that are unsupervised in the library. So, maybe there's some type of compromise where we can identify those books that could be a little bit more mature, and we put them in a section that is closer to the librarian, so when they see young kids, I just think maybe we have a library board, maybe we have some conversations, at least explore some opportunities for some compromise.
I would like to say I am not in favor of any type of censorship at our library. I trust the experience of our librarians. I trust the members of our library board. And personally, what I like about this town is that we do have a community. We are a neighborhood. And I would like to think we're accepting of everyone. And every child needs to be protected, regardless of that child's sexual orientation, religious beliefs, or color. I want to make it known that El Segundo is a community that cares for one another, and we support one another, and we can have a conversation about books and age appropriateness in, I think, a more civilized and appropriate manner. And while I'm welcome to have a conversation with anyone, I just hope that those conversations don't attempt to cast any negative light on any one group, because I really do feel like this is a community that supports and is able to give patience and grace to others to allow them to be who they are and support their needs. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baldino and Councilmember Perstock. Any other comments? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would just say that though if we are going to have, if whichever academic review says that this is a suitable educational format book in some degree, and we have a policy that says parents are going to be supervising children at these things, that's asking a lot of the library staff to be in loco parentis and to see if everybody's parent is there. But if we're going to have a section that has things like this there, I would hope that it would logistically be arranged in a way that the library staff can see that area, and if there's an unsupervised child near there who is not doing this with a parent or guardian or someone that they could, exercise some adult and professional intervention on that, or maybe intervention's the wrong term, but there's certainly things that my children have spent the vast majority, or many of afternoons of their lives in that library unaccompanied, and these are conversations that I would rather have with them than them blundering into on a bookshelf. So I think there's probably a sensible way that as a community, we can find ways to bring out the best in our community interventions or guidance as it comes to these things with small children.
Are there ratings for these books or is there any kind of category? How do the librarians?
If I might interrupt at this point, it's not on the agenda. I think you're allowed to.
Good point. Thank you. We're going to move on. Thank you. This is not an agendized item. I appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comment. All right, you have one more public comment, Madam Clerk?
Yes, I do. It came in just a tad late. Monica Davis.
I just wanted to bring a couple ideas that I had to the board. I have been working diligently with a variety of different committees regarding the blue butterfly habitat. And I know that the board, I read somewhere along the line, are handling the Hyperion issue legally and whatever. I didn't know with whom to speak regarding this, but when you look at the map and you look at where the Hyperion plant sits, it sits right on top of the pristine and perfect area for El Segundo endangered blue butterflies. So I thought I need to mention this somehow, so I brought it here. I know that the back quarter of that plant is all ice plant, which is from South Africa and is kind of a nemesis for the native plants that the blue butterflies need. So as you guys proceed with whatever you're doing with Hyperion, and thank you for all your efforts in regards to that, I thought possibly some of the reparations that the plant could do for El Segundo and its community is to remove the ice plant and plant native plants that would help support the El Segundo blue butterfly, because they have the great location, they have the perfect soil, and there's just a bunch of ice plant because it looks pretty as opposed to something that would support our native endangered blue butterfly. So I just wanted to put that out there so somebody could hear it besides just floating around in my head. Secondly, I had a second issue I wanted to bring up, and I know this is a sensitive topic, but I just had to share my opinion. The plunge. I know you guys are handling the plunge as well. I love the plunge. I've swum there for years. My kids swam alpha, they now swim alpha, and now they're swimming actually for the high school girls water polo team and the high school swim team, where I just picked them up from practice. And although that stadium has historic value as a public works project from the 1940s, and I appreciate it immensely, given the current needs and demands for aquatic sports, the current dimensions of the pool being 25 yards instead of the 25 meters means that really swim meets or nothing else can happen in that dimension. Additionally, water polo, the third of that pool is, if you've ever been in it, you can stand in it, so it doesn't work for water polo. So although that has a tremendous value, I think given the limitations and challenges in the Weisburn Aquatic Center and the control that El Segundo doesn't have there, I think it may behoove the community to look long-term. That pool served us for over 80 years. And I think the next project could also serve us 80 years. And when we look that far ahead, I think that limiting ourselves to a standard from 80 years ago is no longer valid at this time for the water polo, for the high school, for the sports. So I think if we're, as a community, looking at pouring a lot of money into this project, I'm grateful, I'm thankful, I love swim, my kids are swimming. I just think that long-term, we would get more bang for our buck in coming up with a plan that would allow for swim meets and water polo, even if it was just practice. It would be a more useful use of city funds than just a splash pool, purely recreational. That's just my opinion, but I thought that there's some creative ways that maybe we could look at this, and I'm going to step out.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Any other public comments, Madam Clerk? Okay.
Can I point out, Ms. Davis, buried in our consent calendar is our general plan action item on page 66. The goal CN4 is protect the rare and endangered El Segundo butterfly. It does state that during the 2022 downtown specific plan, there was community input advocating for expansion, and that in spring 22, the draft downtown specific plan to be released for public comment includes a policy to include sea cliff buckwheat in the landscaping design of the Civic Center as a habitat for the blue butterfly. So I understand that your group has been coming to a lot of meetings and advocating, and I don't want you to think that those voices haven't been heard. And thank you for your advocacy and for coming down and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, Councilmember Baldino. All right, that concludes public comments. We have a procedural item, item A, read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a second. Okay, great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. On consent calendar, any polls for this evening?
Yes, I'd like to pull 4 briefly and 9.
All right, any others? Okay, do we have a motion to approve 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Baldino so moves.
Pimentel second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0. Item 4, Mr. Councilmember Baldino.
I'm pulling item 4. It is our general plan housing element annual progress report that we send to Sacramento. It basically is a list of the goals of the general plan, the action items that have gone. The first reason I pulled it is just to thank Mr. Allen and staff for getting our housing element done. Without this document being approved, we would be subject to builders coming in, being allowed to build by right, pursuant to the state law. So getting this certified and approved by the state is great for our city, and I know how much work went into that. The second item I wanted to point out is that with the changes in housing policy, CEQA has become less effective. They've gone from a loss of service at intersections as far as traffic congestion to something called vehicle miles traveled, which is a hypothetical situation of guessing what businesses will work there, guessing who the employees will be and where they will live, and then coming up with some formula to say that it's not going to affect traffic. Our general plan allows us to look at projects separate from CEQA, and under policy C1-1.1, we are to ensure that roadway links are constructed and designed in the master plan so as not to have a service of D or better. So our general plan allows us to have this loss of service review, and I would ask staff, I know they've done it in the past, that when we're looking at CEQA projects, we also look at our own general plan as a way to help protect growth responsibly within our cities. And that's all I have for that item. The next item is number 9.
Would you like to move approval on 4?
And with that, I'd like to move approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a first.
Persick second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, okay.
Next, item 9 is a purchase of a newly fully electric shuttle bus and disposition of surplus vehicles through auction. I pulled this because I believe that we should do everything in our power to bring back our downtown shuttle, bring back our beach shuttle, bring back our dial ride if possible. I understand it's been very hard and these shuttles haven't been used because we can't hire someone to drive them, but I don't want to just declare a shuttle surplus if we haven't had first a motion by council to say that we no longer want to have our own dial-a-ride and that we're okay outsourcing it. So I would like to pull this and maybe set it for a separate agenda item to discuss what the future of the shuttles would be. And if you've already voted on it, let me know.
Yeah, I remember getting a staff report on this. Can you, could you please?
Yes, Mayor, if I
refresh
can have our Parks and Rec Director, Ali Mancini, give that
Yes, and I'm
report.
going to ask Elias to join me as well, Elias Sassoon, our Public Works Director. Well, I can provide a little bit of clarity about the services. So the services have transitioned from staff operated to contract. So we haven't discontinued the services. They're all back online at this point. The Dial-A-Ride program, the Swoop Bus Shuttle. We are also talking with another organization called Circuit to see about potentially bringing back the downtown shuttle as well. So the services, it was very difficult to retain enough staff to provide that, which is why we decided to contract out. And the shuttles, I'll let Mr. Elias Sassoon speak to.
Well, actually, and Mrs. Mancini,
Yes.
it wasn't just the difficulty in staffing. I thought there was a significant cost savings, if I remember correctly, too. We're
Well,
talking
yes, there
about
was
employees with PERSable benefits.
Right, there was a cost savings, it was during COVID, I mean, there were a lot of, it was kind of a perfect storm that came together, and that's when we returned from COVID, when we kind of came back, that's when we decided to contract out for those services at that time. And I think that's why the shuttles were considered for surplus.
Yeah, above and beyond what was talked about, the existing shuttles, they've been in state of despair because of the age, because of the mileage, also because they are not handicap capable. So there are lots of issues that we've been having with these shuttles. So that's above and beyond the other reasons.
Don't they also require a commercial driver's license?
Yes.
So that's another challenge with
Yes.
these. So, I mean, is it safe to say we'd be surplusing these vehicles regardless of what program we administer in the future?
Yes, I would say that.
Okay, does that help, Councilmember Baldino? Do you want to?
Yeah, it does. I just want to make sure you guys had spoke about before and made the decision to go this direction as opposed to us just reacting to COVID and not bringing back a service we had. That's all.
And actually, to that end, I know there's at least one resident in town who does not like our outsourced dial-a-ride, because I hear from
That
her
is correct.
son, who's a council member in another city, often about it. How is it working? Do you have figures on adoption and the ease of use for the seniors, that kind of thing?
I don't have numbers in front of me. I have spoken with the one resident that I think you're referring to also, but the majority of riders seem to be pleased with the service. But we are going to look at this other option, Circuit, and what they can offer to see if it's a more comfortable solution, maybe particularly for the senior population.
And we're still subsidized. Is it Lyft that's doing our dial-a-ride?
That's
And are
correct.
we still subsidizing that?
Yes,
We are,
we
okay.
are. Yes, all of that is through Prop A funding, and the purchase of the shuttle is as well.
Do we know how many how many times people in a given month are actually using that service, the dial rights or the new dial rights?
I don't have that information with me, but I can certainly bring it back.
That would really tell us if they're adopting it, because if the ridership is down, or A, we need to do a better job of communicating about it, or B, they don't like the service. So if we could just see pre-COVID to today, like a time over time comparison, that would give us some framework to see if that really is a viable solution or not.
Absolutely, happy to do that.
I think it would be good to survey the users too, just see what they think.
Glad to
I'm
do all
just
of
curious how it's working with folks that, like my mother-in-law, who have barely got on a smartphone.
Right.
You know, and then they're struggling to book and everything else. And then Metro Micro, that's not going away anytime soon either, because
No.
that's another
No,
option.
we're still using that as well.
Okay.
So we're really looking at how can we meet the needs of all the different members of the community, and that's one of the reasons why we are meeting with Circuit as well.
So with the Lyft option,
Yes.
if they don't have a smartphone or access to technology, they can call the
Joslin
Center,
That
and
is
the Joslin
correct.
Center will arrange it for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'd be happy to bring back just an update on those numbers for the
That would
council.
just be kind of interesting to see, you know, because it's always good to reflect and review. So just to see even the ridership of the swoop for the beach, making sure, because I know one of the challenges with the swoop was there was some concern why we couldn't also drop off at El Segundo Beach versus just Manhattan Beach.
Right, okay.
And see if there's a way, because I know that there's kids that have GGs at El Segundo Beach, so those kids couldn't use the program, couldn't use the bus because the bus couldn't go down and do a turn.
Okay.
So I just think it's time, especially before summer hits again, that we review it and see if there's any options that we can do or some tweaks to ensure that we are optimizing that.
Sure.
The ridership.
Be glad to do that.
All right. Based on the information provided, thank you. I'll go ahead and move approval to surplus and buy that electric van.
All right.
Pimentel,
Thank you,
second.
council.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, thank you. All right, we have no public hearings. Staff presentations, item 10, Topgolf sublease assignment and leaseback, lease memorandum, First Amendment, and lease agreement, Second Amendment. And I think the city attorney is going to report on this. or-
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is the item before you tonight relates to the 2021 lease between the city and Center Cal of the Lakes property, the golf course and driving range. That Center Cal lease was subleased to Topgolf, who is the operator of the driving range and golf course. And Center Cal has come forward, or I'm sorry, Topgolf has come forward and asked that it be allowed to assign its rights under its sublease to 42 Real Estate, who is then going to turn around and sublease it back for operational purposes to Topgolf. And this is being done by Topgolf for financial reasons. It's a financing mechanism so they can take those funds that will be gained from doing that transaction and invest them elsewhere. And they're here and can answer your questions this evening. This request came forward to staff, and what we asked for was some detail, which is included in your report as far as what the purpose of the transaction was, and also we, after discussions and some negotiation to make sure that the city's position would not be harmed by this, there were a requirement that there would have to be acknowledgement by the lessor and 42 Real Estate, as well as Topgolf, that the terms of the original lease would still all be in place and be unchanged by these transactions. That the guarantor, there's a guarantor for these transactions, which was a Topgolf related entity, TG Holdings, for purposes of the operation guarantee of 7 years by Topgolf and some other issues, that they would have to execute acknowledgement that they're agreeing that anytime you have a guarantee in California, if there's any changes to the terms of what's underlying that, the guarantor has to acknowledge that they're okay with all of those changes, which is in here. And then finally, they're asking for which basically is taking, there was a 20-year original term on the lease with 6 5-year extensions. And for the financing purposes, they want to take the 20-year term and extend it by 2 years, but reduce one of the extensions by 2 years. So overall, it would still be the same potential of 50 years, but this is for financing purposes. So this is what is before you this evening. And again, the Topgolf representatives here in the front row, we asked them to be here tonight in case the council had questions about the transaction. And with that, done with the presentation.
Just so I'm clear, as I understand it, Mr. Hensley, you asked for certain written assurances from Topgolf that this change would in no way negatively impact the city benefits we're getting from the Topgolf lease, correct?
Correct.
And you've been assured that it won't have any negative impact on our side of the deal. It's just purely a financial maneuver by their part in order to increase some, I guess, some cash flow or something, correct?
Correct. And I mean, there are risks in the deal that exist in any deal. They're not increased by this. And in order to mitigate any additional risk, all these documents were put together to protect against that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hensley, I have one question. Does the strength of the guarantor change at all in this new arrangement?
It's the same guarantor that was the original guarantor. And again, just whenever you change the underlying agreement, you need to get the guarantor's agreement. They're okay with that. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We have 2 items before us. One is to approve the proposed assignment, which would be approving the assignment of Topgolf USA El Segundo LLC sublease to 42 Real Estate LLC and corresponding leaseback of the interest from 42 Real Estate to Topgolf USA El Segundo. And do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a second?
Baldino seconds.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, but now that, since Topgolf has come, and
We got one more item. Do you want to,
Okay.
you want to ask before the second item?
Sure, I just would, if, or we can wait till after, but if you guys want to give us an update on how the facility is doing, it's been in operation now for almost a year. It would be kind of great for you to give us a kind of a recap of how it's performing. And if we can wait till after the second one.
Yeah, let's get to the second motion, see if we have consensus there. It would be to authorize the mayor to execute the second amendment to the due diligence and recreation ground lease agreement between the city and CenterCal, together with the corresponding first amendment to memorandum of lease. And so long as the sublease assignment occurs by May 1st, 2023, and the documents are in a form substantially similar to the drafts attached to this report and approved by the city attorney. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. All right. Would someone from Topgolf like to address Councilmember Persta's question?
And I know that the facility has some new leadership as well. If you guys want to kind of.
We do.
Talk about that.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity for us to be before you tonight. My name is Matt Smith, Senior Director of Real Estate.
I'm Sanjay Arora, Senior Director of Real Estate.
So yes, we're coming up on the first year. It'll be April 15th will be our 1-year anniversary, and overall, it's been a spectacular year, and not only for the venue itself, but also for the golf course. Just a couple of noteworthy items. By our tracking, we should be seeing 70,000 rounds of golf being played in the first year at the Lakes at El Segundo. We're also tracking from the venue perspective. We're going to be eclipsing a very, very successful first year, second only to our year at Las Vegas. So it's been a very successful reception by the city of El Segundo, as well as the overall West LA community. Couple other notable items is that we're soon to be joining the El Segundo Chamber of Commerce. Jim has been very proactive in his 5 weeks of being basically the new Director of Operations. He's also looking to be joining the LAX Coastal Chamber of Commerce. And also wanted to reference that the leadership of the venue is also looking to continue the enforcement. I'm sorry, not the enforcement, but the the partnership with the El Segundo golf team to basically provide free bay time for practice as well as overall practice areas. So, and just to kind of give some context of the request, I'll just give the microphone to Sanjay.
Oh, yeah, I think just to reiterate, we worked closely with city staff and Mark on the consent agenda item, and guarantee remains in place. City's position is as strong as ever, purely a financing mechanism for us to recycle capital and reinvest it in our development business. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I can just add, Mayor and Council, Deputy City Manager Barbara Voss and I just recently met with the new General Manager who took over for Peter Bowman, as you remember. Peter was, and I think Jim's going to do a fine job too.
Thank you. Yeah, I had opportunity to meet him with Peter. He did a little transition for him, but also he was at you guys won the award for Best Hospitality category in all of LA for the LA Business Journal Commercial Awards. Congrats. That was awesome to be there to see that, so well done. All right, Mr. George, we're up to, let's see,
Number
item 11. Replace the budget management analyst position in the city manager's office with the special projects administrator. Establish an accountant part-time classification and revise the job title for the fire equipment mechanic classification. And we see Rebecca Reddick, our Director of HR.
Turn it over to Rebecca. I know our Human Resources Department has been extremely busy, but items like this are helping us go a long way toward shaping a high-performing team at City Hall.
Mayor and Council, the item before you tonight is related to the review of classifications in the City Manager's Office, the Finance Department, and Public Works. So the first item under the recommendations is we created a special projects administrator job description last year. And with the vacancy of the management analyst position in the city manager's office, prior to running recruitment, we always review, is that the most appropriate job for the vacancy. And working with the city manager's office, we determined that the description for the special projects administrator is more appropriate. So the item on here tonight is to take that part-time classification, we updated it for full-time, and the salary range is the same as the existing management analyst, so there is no fiscal impact for that. The part-time special projects administrator position would be eliminated. We wouldn't use that classification anymore. The next item on here is related to the mechanic job descriptions. The mechanic job descriptions, they are a series. There's equipment mechanic 1, equipment mechanic 2, and currently there's fire equipment mechanic. We worked closely with Public Works Department, the supervisors, and the bargaining unit to come to an agreement to update these specs, which were last updated in 1999, 2002, and 2007. And what we have been doing is streamlining them so that it shows the clear career path. We've also retitled the fire equipment mechanic to senior equipment mechanic. So that's the journey level. So the item for that requires a resolution for CalPERS just to establish the salary with the new title on it. There is no change to the salary range. And then the last item that I have for you tonight is to establish a part-time, non-civil service, limited term duration, part-time accountant position that could be used by the finance department when they have busier times. They could use that in lieu of a temporary staffing service person. So it's to provide more flexibility and to be able to get the work done more efficiently when we need to call on part-time staff.
Thank you, Mrs. Reddick. Any questions for Mrs. Reddick?
I just have one question. So I know that one of the things we're looking to do in the very near future is look for a new ERP system.
Correct.
And would the last one you mentioned, help us flex up to ensure that we can accommodate the workload that will take to make that ERP system implementation smooth?
We will be going through, working with finance department, HR department, IT department. We will be launching an RFP to go through the process and select an ERP. With that, I'm sure that whatever company is selected, that they will have a project manager. But yes, this person, the special projects administrator in the city manager's office, will be keeping the city manager apprised of everything that's going on citywide, kind of a one-stop shop, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we can take items 1, 2, and 3 together. That would be to approve establishment of the special projects administrator full-time, the accountant part-time, and related classification specifications. Also is to approve the examination plan for the special projects administrator classification, and also to approve revision of the fire equipment mechanic job title to senior equipment mechanic. Someone like to entertain a motion for all 3 of those?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Okay, and last one, the attorney would read the title, and then we'll motion and vote on
Yes.
that one.
Mayor and council, a resolution establishing basic salary ranges for full-time and part-time job classifications is ready for adoption.
Great. We'd like to move approval.
So moved.
Thank you.
Pimentel, second.
Great. Thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. Item 12, reasonable accommodation policy for Brown Act meetings and procedural direction for teleconferencing under California Assembly Bill 2449.
Yes, Mayor, this staff report will be provided by our city clerk with support from the city attorney's office. I know Joaquin is also in the audience here. Thank you.
Maybe not. All right, as you all know, the governor had rescinded the emergency order, and therefore we no longer can use AB 361 for the option of teleconferencing meetings. However, as of January 1st, 2023, Assembly Bill 2449 will allow local agencies to use teleconferencing without complying with the traditional Brown Act requirements until January 1st, 2026. AB 2449 also requires cities to adopt and notice a reasonable accommodation policy. So in the next few minutes, I'll briefly outline that policy and go over a few rules and guidelines regarding the usage of AB 2449. And also just note that staff is recommending the usage of AB 2449 for city council, and we are requesting CCBs be required to still use the traditional Brown Act teleconferencing. We feel that the requirements of AB 2449 would be too burdensome and time-consuming for staff to uphold and supervise on a continuing basis. So, there we go. I'll sit here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break, which you guys got squared away for now, okay?
Oh, there it is.
We're back.
There we go.
I got it.
Okay. You're gonna have to stay. Thank you.
So-
Appreciate it. Great. Thank you.
So your reasonable accommodation policy, it requires the city to adopt and give notice of reasonable accommodation policy consistent with the Americans Disability Act, ADA. And under the policy, a person could make reasonable accommodation requests orally or in writing through the city clerk's office. But please note, the policy would require city staff to promptly forward reasonable accommodation requests to the city clerk. So if someone else were to receive it, they would send it up to us for processing. And then the city attorney or possibly city manager could authorize and assist in the review of providing a response to the requester, because we never want it to be an unduly burdened request. The request must indicate a specific proposed accommodation requested, the accommodation requested, the requester's identity, and the meaning or meaning for which the accommodation is sought. But to elaborate on this, city, however, cannot require disclosure of a particular disability, but does allow for the general explanation of how the proposed accommodation will allow access for participation in the meeting. And then the resolution would allow for the city manager or designee to modify the policy in order to comply with applicable law. And the city's Brown Act meeting agendas, including those for the CCB's committees, commissions, and boards, we would have to include specific language advising of the adoption and the availability of the city's reasonable accommodation plan. And basically, it's pretty much what we already say. However, we would add a hyperlink that would take our constituents or residents to the policy on the website. And then, next. Is that it? No. One more. That is? Oh, no. Uh-oh. I like how you're... There you go. Oh, back. Okay. And then in order for us to use AB 2449 versus the traditional Brown Act teleconferencing, you need a quorum that is participating on the dais. City council staff must provide a two-way audiovisual platform such as Zoom or a two-way telephonic service and live webcasting of the meeting, which allows public to hear and or visually observe the meeting and remotely address city council. Let's see. And the agenda must give notice by means of the means by which members of the public may access the meeting and offer public comment. So basically on our agendas now, you will most likely always see a Zoom information and you will also see a phone number, but we will have, we will state on the agenda when those will be used. They'll only be enacted when we enact AB 2449. But in case anyone asks you why there's a Zoom number on there or a Zoom dial-in, we need to put it on there because that, for example, you could have an emergency 10 minutes before the meeting that would allow you to Zoom in, but we don't have time to notice the 72 hours. But if we have it on the agenda at all times, then it's there and it's ready to go in case anyone has an emergency. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the last one is the meeting must be paused. You can't take any action if broadcasting platform or audiovisual is interrupted. So if we drop you, we have to get you back up, and we have to stop proceedings of the meeting until we get you back up. The last,
It's up there.
what?
It's up.
Is it next one? Thanks. So what qualifies as, the request qualifies as a just cause or an emergency circumstance is, I'll explain those in a second. The council member publicly discloses before any action is taken whether an individual's 18 age or older are present at the remote location and the general nature of the relationship. I don't know why. The council member is participating through both audio and visual technology, and a council member can only use just cause circumstances for up to 2 meetings in a calendar year, And then the last is the council member can use both just cause or emergency circumstances combined for no more than 3 months or 20% of regular meetings within a single calendar year. And for just cause, you have necessary to caregiving to a child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, spouse, or domestic partner. You don't have it, so you have to provide it before a meeting. You have a contagious illness that prevents you from attending. You have a need related to physical or mental disability as defined that is not otherwise accommodated, or you're traveling on official business for your agency or for the city. And an emergency means a physical or family medical emergency that would prevent you from attending in person. And then the last one. So staff recommends that you approve the reasonable accommodation policy that's in your packet, direct staff to update our meeting agenda templates, and allow AB 2449 teleconferencing for city council and limit CCBs to traditional Brown Act teleconferencing. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Any questions for the clerk?
I would just want to point out, you're going to have to be careful with the wordsmithing if you have that link, because people are going to think they can use it. So you know how you see if they say this is only for council use in case of emergency pursuant to AB.
So the hyperlink is for the reasonable accommodation, so that would be for anybody to see
Okay.
if they have a need that we can help provide them to get to and from a meeting or see a meeting or hear a meeting.
Can we still use the regular Brown Act accommodations if I'm traveling and want to post outside my hotel room?
Absolutely.
Okay, so those antiquated rules are still into effect.
They
This
are
is
still
just
in effect.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. We just did that for Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Yep.
All right, so do you want us to vote on changing the template? There was something else up there, or just?
Yeah, it's a
just-
resolution, so I don't.
Okay, so you want
back, so
Mark, if you could read the
you
title.
just do the resolution, you're good to go.
Okay.
The resolution adopting an Americans with Disabilities Act reasonable accommodations request policy pursuant to AB 2449, directing staff to update meeting agenda templates and requiring city committees, commissions, and boards to use traditional teleconferencing procedures. Is ready for adoption?
Thank you. Would like to move approval.
Pimentel, so moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay. Thank you. We are moving on to reports. City clerk.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. City treasurer, not here. Councilmember Baldino.
Real quick, wanted to say it was my first Civic Day today. I thought it was a great experience. Thank you to all the departments for allowing us to tour and answer questions, and I'm confident that my group of Holden and Alice is going to win the whole thing.
Thank you. Councilmember Giroux.
Nothing for me tonight, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Perstuck.
Yeah, I also want to echo what Councilwoman Baldino said. It was great having the youth here today. You know, they are our future, and it's important that they learn early that they can have an impact, a positive impact on the community and help change and shape our future. So thank you to the El Segundo Unified School District for, continuing this program. I believe we're in our 5th year. And to the teacher, Greg Gass, for, following through with it. And I'm just really grateful to see the youth coming and getting engaged in our community.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I know got a couple items under my name. Really quickly, Northrop Grumman invited Congressman Ted Lieu, Councilmember Laura, MD of Redondo Beach, and myself to the Northrop Grumman Management Quarterly Dinner. Pretty cool. I didn't even know it existed. They've been doing it 70 years. And they did a panel, and we had at least one resident there. So that was pretty cool to see a member of the El Segundo Dads Club that was in the audience. That was fun, and we were represented well. And then this is really cool. I don't know if you guys saw this, but we had Troop 219, which is an all-female scout troop in El Segundo. because now the Boy Scouts are Scouts of America, and they're allowing girls in. Ainsley Golden, Saturday night I was at her court of honor, and she became the first Eagle Scout of that troop as a woman, and did it in really, really quick time, and with, there's some honors you could get that she achieved as well, so congrats to her. Great being there. All right, so the first item is a Sister City program, and it's a really short staff report. Mr. George, what do you want to get accomplished here? For me, it was understanding what we're doing with Guaymas as a city and our relationship there, because it's fallen off over the last 5 to 10 years. So just understanding the intent, really.
No, I know we've had conversations about this, and likewise, I've been involved with other cities previously that have had sister city programs, in some cases two sister cities. So I know this item's on the agenda this evening to kind of hear out some thoughts from the council in terms of any direction provided to staff in terms of re-engaging the sister city program or coming back with more information. So that's, I think, what we'd like to hear tonight, if we have a few minutes to share on that.
All right, I'll open up to my colleagues.
Yeah, if you want to bring it back, I'm happy to have a conversation about it. I always thought it was like a Rotary or a Kiwanis kind of driven, or maybe a chamber thing, but.
Yeah, the way I understand the history, having been involved with Kiwanis now like 20 years or so, is that it was a shared event between the two, but we had sponsors that were heavily involved. George and Robin Funk were heavily involved. The late mayor, Sandy Jacobs, and her husband were heavily involved. The Bushes there were a lot of families that were involved with this program over the years. But what's happened the last few years is that they've reached out to us and we've reacted. But they've reached out somewhat last minute. Like, we're going to invite you to Carnival next month. Bring as many people as you can, which that used to be a thing every year where a contingency of El Segundo would go down to the parade and in the Carnival and celebrate with Guaymas, and they would come here. There are stories of families. If you know the Estrada family, huge baseball family in town. One kid played for Robbie Estrada, played baseball for Mexico. Another brother played pro. That family came here as a result of Guaymas and the relationship with Guaymas and a family that sponsored them here in town. And that family was a former mayor, the Carr family. So this is a long legacy program, and we're doing it a disservice right now. So we just have to make a decision as a city. Are we going to support this or not? I don't have any answers. It's put it out there. Councilman Drew.
Yeah, I think I like the Sister City project in conception, but I think we need to consider who we're partnering up with. If anybody just says, look, my wife is from Mexico, my family's down there in different parts, but this is in an area that is a difficult area to visit and to do business with and deal with right now. This is part of Sonora. This is part of the Sonora cartel area. It's a dangerous area right now. The reason why it's fallen off is because I wouldn't want to have any one of our staff have to make a trip down there at this point in time. This may change, but as of right now, I think it's a difficult ask, just based on what's going on currently. I think it's a great program. I just maybe would question at this point in time the particular location.
Yeah, it's been over 10 years, Lance. This isn't a recent development. Yes, the crime is an issue in Mexico off and on. I have a place down there. It's always seems to come up in border towns in particular. This is south of that, but yeah, it's a challenging area right now. It's just, regardless of what the current environment is, we need to make a decision as a city if we're going to support this program or not. And it has a long history. We're not going to make that decision tonight because we don't have any information. We have a very basic staff report in front of us that requires more thought and consideration. But yeah, Councilmember Perstock.
So I agree. I think we should have a conversation about it. But I also think, times have changed. And when this program was originally initiated, technology wasn't there. There wasn't, you couldn't communicate as effectively. And today, technology opens a window into areas very, I have a regular conversation with two of my nieces, one's in Amsterdam, one's in London, on a regular basis, and because of the technology. And I think that what we need to do is look at the program and look how we can modify it to accommodate those changes. And maybe it's not visits anymore, but maybe it's just dialogue or shared partnerships. And maybe, you know, one of the things I think was really, you know, we talked about having ambassadors from our schools, you know, with their ambassador from their schools. And so there's opening and sharing of cultures and sharing of knowledge, that maybe it's a different program, you know, and that way, if we do it using technology, we don't have to go visit because of the crime, but at least we're not, we're continuing it and embracing it in a different manner.
Yeah, again, thank you. I don't have an answer. I don't have an opinion one way or the other because I've never been there. I'm just hearing everything secondhand from people that have this, that there's been this tradition that's gone on for a long time. And remind you also, I was put in a kind of an uncomfortable situation a few years ago when I did a China delegation trip where they asked me to commit to a sister city arrangement while I was on that trip, and I politely declined. And instead, we had an agreement to consider exploring some possible relationships, working together, very nebulous kind of agreement. But, and it also occurred to me that City of Torrance recently, I think it was a new development where they are partnering with a city in Japan. I think it's either Japan or China, but or Korea, sorry, it's Korea. And it's very strategic. They said they have similar industries as us. We want to work together and foster innovation. And to that end, Barbara, you just met with me and Takeshi Haburo-san. The Japanese want to bring entrepreneurs here anyway, so that could be an interesting place to start, as well as working with the Ministry of Economic Trade to partner. So I'm not saying I have the idea. I'm not saying it has to be Wymus. I'm just saying we should think about it and make a decision in the future one way or the other.
Sure.
Maybe this could be part of the Arts and Culture Committee discussion. And that's really what their title is, Arts and Culture.
Can I recommend that whenever we agendize this to talk it through, that we have some sort of calendared plan? So even if we don't go down there for Carnival, like we revisit this in, say, June and decide that we're going to set a delegation in April for Carnival, and then we can reevaluate in December if the security situation is permitting, because certainly it is a tough area. Like that's, you know, it's not right on the border, but it's right on the highway, and there's it's difficult to be down there.
You have enough to work with? I don't know if there's further comments.
Yes, we can, we've got direction now to go back. We'll come back with a more comprehensive staff report that I think can talk about some of the issues you bring up and look maybe what some other cities are doing by way of new approaches to the sister city program, but not necessarily focus on this one city that we've always been a sister city with.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further thoughts? Good. Okay. Next item, item 14, discussion of possibly establishing a public safety task force. Here, the primary idea is to look at new technologies, new innovations in policing overall, and you know, maybe this is city attorney, maybe city manager, about an opinion about how we could accomplish that here.
Well, with regard to the technology and innovation items, and you want to establish some sort of task force with the council and city manager and police chief, that type of thing, that's certainly something you can do. With regard to the use of force issue, city manager, I've been discussing that at some length over the last few weeks, and that item we would recommend that we be given some time to explore some different ways to look at that and provide some assurances to the community and the council as to ways to address this. But it's a very difficult issue in that the officers and the people working in that department have privacy rights and personnel rights, and I know on the other side there are people with civil rights that are concerned about what goes on in, as far as police departments, and we would like the opportunity, city manager and myself, to look at this over the next couple of weeks or so and see if we can develop some way of bridging that gap between the officers and community and trying to provide assurances best we can. There is no such thing as perfection, but that as far as use of force, that we can develop some way of of giving, again, assurances to both sides and everyone's interest in this, and let's work on that. As far as the other aspect of it, again, you can form a subcommittee of the council if you want, with city manager and the police chief if you want to talk about technology issues and those kind of things. And that may be something you just want to do on a short-term basis, as opposed to a standing committee.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that we're a small agency, and I know the chief works within the region and that he's part of a chief association, all that. Just, there's so many new technologies coming out. Some have merit, some probably don't, but there's just a lot of innovation happening in that space right now. I just was on a demo today with a provider. So I think the task force would be a good thing to just have another set of eyes and support innovation in policing. And if my colleagues feel the same way, I'd love to, do something like that.
Can I also
tonight.
recommend
Yeah.
it's not just policing, but it's also fire? And just looking at it holistically, because that was one of the reasons when you and I got on council back in 2016 was we formed the IT committee, the tech committee, because we wanted to ensure that we were constantly challenging ourselves and that our technology was current. And we disbanded that committee because it kind of had gone through its course. But I think, so this is a new twist on it, but similar guidelines, and maybe it's just a short term, like it could be a subcommittee, or so it's can actually act quickly. And then you can look and make sure, like plan out 3 to 4 years of technology and then disband and then come back again.
I like that idea. Make it public safety then.
Yeah.
Okay, both police and
And
fire.
I'd like to add our new IT director, Jose Calderon, on the task force, if you
That's,
will.
okay, so then do you have a sense of other structure besides yourself, IT director,
And
council member, or two, and the chief, or
correct, and the two chiefs, if we're going to include fire.
is there support for that type of short-lived task force?
Sure, if you and Chris are willing to do it, I think it sounds great.
I think Chris definitely should do it, because this guy is a subject matter expert in security and law enforcement. I'd be happy to, unless someone else would rather do it, because I'm pretty full on stuff too.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages is that it can speed up. So what happens now is, right, there's a big idea, the police look at it, then it goes to staff report, then it gets agendized when there's time, and all of a sudden 90 days in, we make a decision that it takes 30 days to implement, 30 days to look, to observe, 30 days to report on, then we come back, and it's 8 months later, and we think, why do we have these license plate readers if everyone just steals license plates before they steal our catalytic converters? So if this thing will speed up the amount of time to implement big ideas and take a look at technology and things, I'm all for it.
Okay, well, I'd be happy to serve if we have a motion to set up a task force, as long as he's on it too, he being Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm happy to do so.
Okay.
Baldino so moves.
Persick, second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great, 5-0, thank you. So then use of force, Mark, you're suggesting you'll work with the city manager and come back to us with the protocol there?
Correct.
Okay. When do you think?
Second meeting in April.
Yeah, because we're out first week, spring break, okay. All right, that was it. Oh, real quick, cool thing, Lars Nupar, I don't know how the score ended, but that wasn't Japan playing US today?
Amazing game yesterday.
Yeah, homegrown talent playing in the World, what's it called? Baseball World Classic?
Baseball World Classic, yeah.
Pretty amazing. So cool. I was at the Richmond, like, watching this, didn't even realize he was like, wait, that's Newbar up there. All right, city attorney,
Nothing else this evening, thank you.
city manager.
Yes, Mayor, if you don't mind, I would like to give my Hyperion
Yes,
update,
please.
which we missed earlier. So just give me a few minutes here. I do have a few updates that I'd like to share with the council and the community. Lots happened again in the last couple weeks. I'll start off with kind of on the legislation end. Myself and city staff have been continuing to meet with Assemblymember Marisucci's office regarding Bill AB 1216. By the way, that's the number of our bill, AB 1216. And it's titled Wastewater Treatment Plants Monitoring of Air Pollutants, which would require wastewater treatment plants like Hyperion in the state of California to monitor the air quality for H2S, NOx, and VOCs. As you know, currently the regulations only require testing for H2S. If passed, the bill would be enacted close to January 1st, 2025. So it is going to take a while, but at least we're on our way. As you know, we've been pushing for this now since September of last year, but as I said, it's finally on its way. And they've been very good in his office communicating with us. The bill was sent to the committee on March 16th, and the process so far so good. Also, Assemblymember Marisucci will be taking a tour of Hyperion on Friday, March 24th. And also, him and his staff will be hosting a community coffee the next day on March 25th from 10 to 11:30 at El Segundo Library. Details to sign up for the meeting can be found in the news section of our city's website. As you know, we introduced Dr. Stenstrom last week, and he's already hit the ground running. We've had 3 meetings with him, and he's providing he's helped us provide input on language in the bill. He is also following up on Hyperion's compliance with the orders of abatement issued by AQMD. And then, more importantly, he's actually helped us establish a kickoff meeting tomorrow with Barbara Romero, who's the general manager over at Hyperion, and her staff. And we will report on the outcome of that meeting at our next council meeting. So looking forward to that face-to-face. Then we haven't had one in a while with Dr. Stenstrom there. And then finally, we continue to reach out to AQMD, and they have reported the following activity since March 7th. They've received 30 odor complaints in the last 2 weeks. 10 of those complaints were made on March 9th. There's been no new notices of violation. AQMD continues to evaluate Hyperion's compliance with the conditions under the orders of the last abatement. And they are also having a hearing on Thursday, March 23rd at 9 a.m. to review a petition to modify the order of abatement regarding Hyperion's flares. The agenda for that meeting can be found on our website. So that concludes the Hyperion update. A lot going on. Thank you.
And just for clarification for everybody, all this information is on our website.
Correct.
All the information that you're reporting tonight, we're constantly updating that website.
Absolutely.
And we'll be pushing out some
Right.
information via
Yes,
Facebook.
and we're working with the new Hyperion Task Force, as you know, also in Councilmember Baldino. We've had already, I think, 3 or 4 meetings, productive meetings, and the assistance has been great to help us push the information out in a more comprehensive manner and a more direct manner. So those also have been going on.
Thank you. Councilmember Baldino, anything to add from the task force?
No, I just really want to thank staff for being so accommodating with the task force and really helping us try to get the information out to the citizens so everyone knows what's going on. We're making some good progress. It's good to see, but there's still people who have questions, and we want to make sure we get the answers out there. So thank you.
All right. I believe that concludes. Yeah, that's it. Nothing further, right? City manager?
Nothing else, Mayor. Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thank you.